All right, welcome back to Sandcraft Motorsports. We've got another installation video for you. It's the 2019 Turbo S steering rack stabilizer. I've already removed the tires and all the stock equipment. We're just going to jump right into it. Let's get it done. So we are doing this installation on our test vehicle, so I won't really be able to show you how we dismantled it. What you are going to be doing is replacing or removing the upper diff support bracket, the steering link, and also the front diff wire harness, which basically you just need to pry out of that said plate up above. 18 mil wrench or socket, whatever you have, to take off the spindle, 1.25 inches to a monkey wrench, whatever you prefer. But one of the things that we will be doing later on is basically cutting off the boot and reusing on this installation. So basically what we end up doing first, after we get all that stuff out of the way, is we take our steering rack. It'll come more pre-assembled. What you're going to do is take your ears off and basically leave it as this. I've already re-greased the bar, and all you have to do is basically lift up your brake line and slide into place. Making sure your front diff wire harness is clear. Get it into position the best you can using the 4 8-mil Allens that come supplied with the kit. What I tend to do is find the first hole by just basically how you do find any other hole. Feel it out. Hand tighten as much as you can. And you can pretty much do the same with the rear and the same side. The passenger side, whatever side you start on is fine. Doesn't matter. And again, as far as you can get it with your hand, the better, because the Allen, there really isn't much space. And just like the passenger driver side, sorry, you're going to do the same on the passenger. And the reason we have the slots in this, because I know every chassis isn't exactly the same. So it allows you a little clearance. And we aren't going to tighten these bolts or Allens until we have the ears assembled onto the steering rack and the stabilizer bar. So we're going to leave them loose to help us with aligning it. Now I've pretty much gotten to that point where I'm going to have to break out the Allen. So after we hand tighten everything, we're going to take a number 6 Allen and basically tighten it to not even snug fit, to a loose fit, because then we're going to put our ears on and we are going to start aligning this and slowly tighten things up as we go, making sure everything runs smoothly. So our next step is going to be mounting our stock bellows that we've already installed. So they're already cut. But when I cut them off the arm, what I did is I made sure I cut them before the first fold. And another thing to pay attention to is you have a passenger side and a driver's side. Just take note when you're reassembling, it's going to be plain as day. That's kind of why I like to go ahead and install them on the rack first before I install them on the ears. And that could be, you could install them on the wrong ear. So just go ahead and install them on the rack first. And what I like to do is just kind of twist it on. You'll feel it seat. Make sure. And then I go ahead and take a pre-zipped, is at the very beginning, zip tie, or wrap it around. One of the other things you can use is safety wire. but stock off the factory floor, they use zip ties, so I think that's good enough for us too. So it's nice to have a pair of flush cuts. So if you're ever working on the vehicle later on, reaching your hand in there, you don't have anything scratching your hands. I know we've all done that. And now we can go on to the passenger side. Coming onto the passenger side, you have this inside grommet. And once you push this on, sometimes the bellow itself wants to push past it or it wants to slip inside. So just pay attention to that as you're going onto the steering rack itself. Now taking my started zip tie, slip it on over. And then before I start pulling, I just make sure that it's seated inside and around the lip of the bellow, and then get a final snug. Again, flush cuts are key. Always one of the things I like to do prior is before I get going on any installation, if I need to be using thread locker on any of my bolts, I like to go ahead and do it beforehand. So as I'm going, I don't have to think about anything and I can just assemble. So let's just go ahead and put this ear on. I like to start with putting, you're gonna be using a 14 mil socket on the lower ear. And so basically what I will do is I'm just moving forward is I'm going to slip this on the bellow onto the ear, and you'll feel it. Just get that thing started. Just make sure you don't cross thread anything. Back up if you need to. And after I have that Allen started, all I have to do is pull the bar towards the ear. You're going to be using an 8 mil. And again, you can put your tool on and just start it. What I'm doing now, just like I did with the stabilizer itself, is all I'm doing is tightening it to a point, and I'm gonna back it off, leaving it loose. And it's gonna help with the alignment. Once I get to a point that I'm happy with, I'll move on to the passenger side and do the same. One of the things I like to do is when I'm installing is I'll steer to whatever direction that gives me a little bit more freedom with the bellow. And so here, being able to come in with the bolt and tool in hand, I can just get things started. And I'll just do that for a little bit, pull this guy out, and I'll grab my 8 mil for the upper, load it up, and come in, and I'll be able to start this guy. And that pretty much buried itself right there. So I'll just come in again, leaving things loose. So once I feel that I'm starting to get on to being able to start my alignment, again, you can bring it all the way to the end and just back it off. There it is. Just loosen it a little bit. Again, this one was just by hand. A little bit. Ooh. Right now, as you can see, I have a wobbly with the extension. It helps keeping the tools from banging up with your arms and your fresh powder cup. So I think we're now ready for alignment. Now we're going to be moving on to the alignment. We got everything tightened to a certain point that everything's still loose. What we're going to do is we're going to work the steering wheel back and forth, making sure that everything's free and not binding. If you feel like things are binding, loosen, just check every bolt. It doesn't hurt. Everything feels free. Where we're going to start is the steering rack itself. I'm basically carrying my tools with me, and so let's just dive in and start snugging things up. And once you've just kind of tightened things up again, double check your steering. Just go back and forth. Again, just do this as many times as you want. And if you don't like something, go back and redo it. I got the steering rack tight. I'm going to go to the wheel and pray that it's still free. Yeah, it feels good to me. Now, here comes the tricky part. Basically, what I like to do, whatever side I'm going to start with, I want to bury it. I'm going to do a light torque on top and bottom. Tighten things up a little bit here and there. And what we're going to do is we're going to steer all the way to the right, bring it all the way out. And at that time, you want to still feel any binding. We're going to bury it on the passenger side, go over with our tools, and do the same thing. Come in from the bottom. Your torque is tight. It's not finished. Just tighten it up. Again, go right back to the steering wheel. Making sure you're not feeling any binding. Like I like to say, you don't have nothing but. Again, I just go ahead and not necessarily bury it. As long as you're still happy with that, go ahead and try and do a finished torque on it. Now that we're happy with the alignment on the steering rack and stabilizer, we're going to move forward to installing the drag links. Part of the kit are these spindle bolts, tapered and heat treated. And what we're all going to do is we're just going to take a 19 mil and an 8 mil, and we're just going to snug them into place. One of the things I have found that works best is if you do have it, is a ratchet wrench. Just get this a little bit beyond so your 8 mil will work. And I know you're not going to be able to get your final torque on this. That will come later after you add your drag link. So you're just really trying to seat this. You'll feel it, and then once you get to a point, I never really like to do a final torque as much as I can with my ratchet wrench. Bring in my fixed. So our tie rods are one directional. It's tapered for wheel clearance. So you really can't mess it up unless we mess it up. But basically all you gotta do is add the heim into here. Start your bolt. After you get the top bolt started, add your misalignment spacers. And And you may have to decrease the steer on this for clearance. Slip it over. And once you do that, go ahead and add your nut. And then we'll get going on the final torque. And we'll do the same thing on the passenger side. So now that we have both drag links installed, we're going to do a final torque. I've already done on passenger side. I'm going to do the driver's side for you. £46. And now we'll move on to the spindle side. And now for the bottom nut on the spindle. So let's just go ahead and do another recap on what we've done. Just take your time, enjoy the process. Make sure you have free-flowing movement through the whole thing before you give it a final torque. And pretty much all we really need to do now, jack this thing back up, put the tires on, and we're going to set the alignment. Thank you for watching our Sandcraft 2019 Turbo S steering stabilizer installation. I hope it's been informative. Thank you.